If you've ever seen an old building in your neighborhood and thought, I wonder what's in there, then I've got the perfect event for you to put on your calendar. Open House Chicago from the Chicago Architecture Center is back October 18th and 19th. It's a free citywide festival where you get behind the scenes access to more than 200 of Chicago's most beautiful, historic, and interesting buildings across 25 neighborhoods. Seriously, there's no tickets. You just pull up and explore the buildings. Plan your weekend now at openhousechicago.org. Steppenwolf Theater kicks off its 50th season with the Chicago premiere of Mr. Wolf. Written and directed by ensemble members, the Chicago Tribune gave it 4 stars and called it explosively emotional. And I watched the trailer, y'all, and that seems like a perfect description. It follows the story of Teresa, a 15-year-old who has been missing for over a decade. Now a miraculous reunion has left her with a family she no longer understands nor recognizes. Get tickets now at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, spooky season is finally here, so we're holding a little tournament for some of the low-key scariest things in Chicago. It's Thursday, October 2nd. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alisea back in the building for the 3rd day in a row. Simone, what's good, my friend? How you feeling?
Hey, I'm okay. Listeners are getting a lot of me past couple weeks. Really just wringing that dry, aren't we?
Hey, if our emails and if our comments are any indication, they love it. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, who was featured in our Guide to October yesterday on the podcast, made it very clear that you and I need to get into like the energy, get our energy up, get into the Halloween season. She was like, y'all kind of a buzzkill. Y'all don't do costumes. Y'all ain't trying to go to no haunted houses. Like what y'all doing? We got like 30 more days of Halloween.
She put us on notice. We were we really kind of had to, go big or go home. Yeah, for sure.
You and I have made it very clear that we are not huge fans of horror movies. We don't like artificial fear. We don't really get our rocks off on like ghost stories and monster stories, but for the sake of matching or at least trying to even get a smidge closer to the type of energy Emmy gonna be bringing all month long, I figure let's talk through some of the like spookiest, scariest, maybe creepiest things that you and I see in this city. But before we get into that, right, before things get a little too scary, I want to remind listeners that we are in the last 48 hours of our fall membership campaign. And the scariest thing I need to tell you right now is that after those 48 hours are up, you are going to lose the opportunity to own a Neighbors Make Chicago tote bag. And y'all, we've done a few of these campaigns, so I could, with, pretty like 99.9% confidence say, I don't think this edition of the tote bag is going to be coming back anytime soon. How about you do yourself a favor and you don't get up against the witching hour. You ain't in the last 30 minutes trying to find your car information. Go to membership.citycast.fm right now. We're going to hand you all of the perks and we're going to ship a tote bag directly to you. I spent a lot of time talking about the merch, but obviously your support of this podcast and this newsletter is about so much more than just being drippy. Right, Simone? Right?
Absolutely it is. As you said, we're in the last 48 hours, which I guess could be the title of a horror film. It's like 28 days, right? Mm-hmm. Except I would argue that being a CityCast Chicago neighbor makes you the opposite of a zombie. It makes you like a whatever that is. It's like a leader, like a trendsetter, somebody who is...
I think the opposite of a zombie is not dead, Simone.
Also alive. It makes you alive in this city.
It makes you alive.
I said what I said. We've been hearing from listeners and hearing from new neighbors that beyond just sort of the spookiness of the season, it's like legitimately kind of a scary time right now, right? And I hope that we here at CityCast Chicago help make that time less scary for you. That's what you support when you become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. You're supporting these conversations that help ground you and connect you to Chicago. We heard from a new neighbor, Jillian E., who said, the work you all are doing is so powerful. Listening to the podcast keeps me grounded and connected to Chicago. I know I can trust what I am hearing from Jacoby and the CityCast team. Thank you. That's the goal. That's what we want. We want you to feel more connected to Chicago. We want you to feel like when things are so polarized, when things are just so scary, I guess, in the outside world, that you can listen to this show and feel like, you can still get out there. You can still appreciate Chicago. You can still connect with Chicago. Another new neighbor, Maura B., said, local news means more to me now more than ever. I can learn about, process, and take action on what is going on in Chicago with CityCast. And at this overwhelming, fearful time, my sources of groundedness and hope lie in community and taking part in community. CityCast Chicago is a major way I can connect to that community. Maura, Jillian, everyone who's joined so far, we are so appreciative that you've taken the time and energy and, of course, giving us, some of your hard-earned cash. But I do think, membership is that way that you can kind of help participate. We bring you this thing for free. We put out the podcast for free, the newsletters in your inbox for free. But to keep it going, to make sure it stays free for everybody, we do need some people to pitch in. And participating in that, becoming a neighbor, is a way that you can do that. You can do it at membership.citycast.fm. And of course, you get the perks like the tote that Jacoby talked about, ad-free listening, neighbors-only events. But really, it's that commitment to what we do. And so I hope you'll join today.
Hey, I really appreciate Jillian for what they wrote in, this idea of being able to trust what we're saying. And so 48 hours left, 2 more days. And hey, if you go to membership.citycast.fm right now, you not only can get the tote bag, but if you're a Cubs fan, you could say, I signed up while they were still in the playoffs. So let's get into this conversation. Obviously, we are at the start October spooky season, but I think we should start with this idea of what do we mean when we say spooky, scary, creepy for this conversation? Because let's be real. If you listen to Tuesday's episode or Monday's episode, we had plenty of things to be scared about.
The way we're thinking about spooky, scary, we are not talking about real, massive existential threats, right? We are not talking about, federal agents marching through Chicago, displays of authoritarianism with potentially more military troops on the way. We're not talking about that. No. We did an episode a couple weeks ago about how AI data centers are depleting our fresh water.
Scary as hell. Terrifying.
We're not talking about climate change. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about gun violence. We're not talking about gun violence in Chicago, neither as a true existential threat that affects that many people in the city are facing, that they fear. And we're definitely not talking about it as sort of a dog whistle, bad faith, the way when people say, I'm afraid to go to Chicago or whatever, right? We're definitely not talking about it that way.
Facts.
What we are talking about here, the way I'm thinking about this conversation, is stuff that maybe could feature in a horror film, right? Also, I think when we're talking about this, we're talking about stuff that's fun to be scared of. Stuff, right? The people go to horror movies because it's enjoyable, it's entertaining. That's the kind of spooky, scary stuff that we are talking about here today.
There are a few things on this list that can get, you go a couple degrees, they can get very real, very quick, and
Which you and I are bound to do because we're very academic and intellectual.
Exactly.
We have a bad
people.
habit of that.
Right, but our goal isn't to, in some of these, to trigger you or to even bring anxiety upon ourselves. More or less, if we're talking about something that could lead to something tragic, something dangerous, we're more or less thinking about the concept of it, right?
It's so funny that we're explaining this right now because people who like scary stuff do not need this explained to them.
No, they don't care.
Yeah, this is
they
what
just
it is.
get to it. We
just
get it.
Get to the bracket.
It's both a genre of entertainment and a very real thing for people. Just start talking about spooky stuff, y'all. We get it, Halloween. But actually, I think our first matchup is probably the best, one of the best examples of what we're talking about, because it's really this sort of face off between Chicago ghost stories and sort of Chicago's place in horror. And that's the Congress Hotel versus Chicago's horror movie canon. Should I explain what we mean by horror movie canon?
I was gonna say, yeah, what are we including in the horror movie canon?
So I was thinking things like Child's Play, right? So that's like Chucky. I'm thinking like all of the Candyman movies, Man with a Hook for a Hand. There are other movies that have like connections to Chicago or Illinois, whether it's things like Poltergeist or one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, Amityville Horror. Michael Myers lives in like a fictional suburb in Illinois. And so when we think horror movie canon, we're just thinking about some of the most recognized scary movies that either took place in Chicago, were shot in the burbs, or their narrative has some connection to our city. And as such, being who we are, we've kind of adopted it as our own. And Simone, what do we mean when we say Congress Hotel?
Yeah, the Congress Hotel is an actual real place. The Congress Plaza Hotel, it is notoriously one of the most haunted places in Chicago, and sort of is featured highly in any kind of, haunted ghost tourism that you may encounter in the city. Unlike some other places that have like one specific story. So like, for example, the Nederlander Theater as the former, which used to be the Iroquois Theater, and then the Iroquois Theater burned down, right? And there's an awful tragedy. Unlike spots like that, the Congress Plaza Hotel doesn't necessarily have just one story or one tragedy that has given it this reputation. There have been several a lot like tragic and creepy occurrences that have supposedly occurred there, several different deaths in the early 20th century that, and like rooms that have since been closed. And yeah, it's just, I would say it's one of the spots in Chicago that is most generally haunted, maybe is a way of putting it. So with that in mind, Jacoby, what's your pick? Who do you think wins this face off between the horror movies and Congress Hotel?
All right. So I think Congress Hotel as sort of also a stand-in for like other places in the city where people are like, you can see ghosts or shadowy figures, or there was a figure around one of the like north side cemeteries where they would like ask you for a ride, like a hitchhiker, and then you disappear. Like, I think those sort of spooky stories of lore are a lot scarier than like a horror movie.
I agree. Hard agree.
Yeah, like if you go into like the Cabrini Green lore, like it gets real messed up real fast. Gets some really,
which was related to Candyman, right? There is like there was an actual case where a man was coming through mirrors and killing people, and that was sort of served as the inspiration.
And then just beyond sort of the obviously again the disinvestment of Cabrini, where it's largely set, like all of that very real, very terrifying. But a lot of these other movies is just like, if we thinking about like the list of paranormal horror icons that I'd take on in a fight, I don't know, I whoop Chucky ass, right? I throw some paws to Chucky. But like, if I'm on the fourth floor and there's a woman hovering over the bed, I don't know, I just watched all the Conjurings and
this is my thing. The Congress Hotel is an actual place, and just standing out on the curb, it feels haunted. It looks like a place that's like, and this is my thing about like ghost stories and spooky stuff. So much of what we're talking about when we're talking about these places, especially places where it's like, oh, this tragedy occurred. A lot of times what we're feeling, that unsettledness we're feeling, is like the emotion of the tragedy hundreds of years down the line, right? Like we're just sort of like, oh, I'm in the same place where this awful thing happened. Like, ugh, that's not good. And I think like the Congress Plaza Hotel represents that so well, and is in such a central part of the city. And yeah, so yeah, hard agree. I think we're agreed on that pick, Congress Hotel for sure.
For sure. And again, it's a place like this that all of these movies get written about. And so you might as well just stick with the source. All right, let's go to this next one. And now these are two suggestions that I made that the first one feels like my sort of biggest.
I have a feeling this is a real anxiety dream you have.
Yeah, this is probably like one of my biggest anxieties versus the biggest anxiety when I was a kid. And so this round is bombing on stage versus an animal attacker. Let me start with the second one, because I get, you hear that and immediately like, that's a very real one, Kobe. I thought y'all said y'all was kind of talking about.
Oh, that's so funny, because I hear that and I'm like, that's not a real, like, I don't know. Animal attacks are like crazy common in Chicago.
Right, they're not crazy common. But what's funny is what made me think of this was this past weekend, there's this squirrel outside of my apartment that stalks you. And I've watched it stalk multiple people, where you'll come out of the apartment and it'll look at you and it'll walk up to you. And it'll jump on the banister and it'll get real close to you. You're like, all right, back up. And it'll just like follow you down the driveway half the block. And it makes me think about like the falcon that'll dive bomb you, or, people walking their dog and afraid that a coyote, might come get they little purse puppy. Or, when I was a kid, there was this big thing about don't run through the forest preserves because a pit bull will come out and get you. Now, again, most of these things, unsubstantiated, like you said, they're not happening a lot, but like the thought of you just sort of go out to take the trash out and just like a family of raccoons jump out on.
I mean, the way people respond to a massive Chicago rat, right? Like,
I'm like, look how we respond to like cockroaches and rats and stuff. Like,
we're much bigger than them. We're higher up than them on the food chain, and yet
the way they can put the full body tingle store person is hilarious. And then on the other, like, I imagine in a city as well known for live performance that has so many outlets for people to get on stage, we really focus a lot on like the community aspect of that and how warm and kind people are. But what we don't talk a lot about is that anxiety that a lot of performers feel behind that curtain of like, I'm gonna go out here and these jokes ain't gonna be funny, or my voice is gonna crack, or I will forget my story halfway through, or my improv isn't working tonight.
Even if you're not someone who's on stage a lot, if you've ever had the dream of I'm in a play and I don't know my lines, right? Like that is the terror that we're talking about here. And I will say, like, that is definitely a thing I am probably more actually afraid of in real life, and sort of gives me more anxiety in my dreams. However, my pick for this is actually going to be the animal attack, because I think, and based on the criteria, that I think you could write a horror film around it. Like, I think I would love to see like a Chicago rat stalking its prey, slowly killing off its enemies one by one. Like, I think that would be so good. I'm going to go with the animals, actually.
We're going to go 2 for 2, and I'm going to go with animal attacks, mostly because I'm too damn good to buy most stage. Let's be real. I don't actually need to be that afraid of that. Animal attack, on the other hand, I ain't even going to hold you. That squirrel the other day almost had the fear of God in me, because I was like, back up, hit him with the little chest bump. And he kept getting closer, and I was just like, I just couldn't help but think, like, if this thing jumped at me,
he's just socialized,
and I can't grab it, the way it's going to climb in my shirt, around me, just start biting it.
It's going to go up your pant leg.
I went back inside, homie. I ain't even finna hold you. I picked my stuff up, and I had food on me. So I was going to a family reunion, so I had food. So I was like, maybe it's really motivated.
So that squirrel won. Like, you backed down. You blinked first.
I did. I went into the room. And it's funny. I told Taylor the story, and she was like, you serious? To the squirrel? And I was like, gee, it had a look in his eye. Tell me why 2 days later, Taylor went outside and she was like, call me, Kobe. I think I saw the same squirrel, G.
What's going on with those squirrels in South Loop, man? What are they doing?
It walked me down. It was walking up, and I just couldn't. I'm like, these things fast, bro. I can't take the chance that this thing rabied me up. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the animal attack. I ain't even gonna hold you.
All right, animal attack it is.
Fall is in full swing, which means fall theater season is back and cracking across the city, and I got another pick for you to look out for. Don't wait to secure your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's world premiere of Hundreds and Hundreds of Stars. Motherhood, marijuana, and the multiverse collide in this story set in Chicago, exploring family, immigration, and identity. The play follows Clara, who's applying for U.S. citizenship ahead of a trip to Paris with her tween daughter, but Clara's application is unexpectedly flagged, threatening the only home she's ever known. We got a quote from the playwright and star Sandra Delgado, who says, "This is a very personal family tale, not unlike those playing out more and more every single day in Chicago and around the country." Starting October 8th, this Timeline production is being hosted in the immaculate Looking Glass Theater space in the historic Water Tower Waterworks at Pearson in Michigan. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and to get your tickets today.
Hey, I'm Natalie, and I've always been a bit of a media geek. I pay attention to where people get their information, and I believe that high-quality information is a human right, and we have to support the local outlets that provide this. For me, CityCast Chicago is one of them. I love the city for its neighborhoods, its culture, and its people. It's vibrant and welcoming, but like other major cities, it can be complicated. And I want local media that reflects that reality honestly. CityCast Chicago does. Plus, it's a joy to listen to each day. You get conversations that are smart, surprising, and deeply local. It's thoughtful without being heavy and entertaining without being shallow. And sometimes it changes the way I see the world. I'll never forget the episode about a pigeon rescue that completely flipped how I feel and think about pigeons. I went from rolling my eyes at them to tearing up every time I think about them. That's why I became a neighbor, because Chicago deserves the kind of local storytelling and conversations that surprise and delight, and I want CityCast Chicago to stick around. Be a part of this with me. Become a CityCast Chicago neighbor at membership.citycast.fm and help keep local media in our city thriving.
Before we get into the next two matchups, I want to take this moment to remind you that we are in the final days of our fall membership campaign.
Yeah, you can sign up right now at membership.citycast.fm. And I've been reading a couple listener comments recently, and I want to look at this one from Serena M. Serena moved here from the West Coast about 4 years ago. Hey, hello. I'm also that person. I also moved here from the West Coast 4 years ago. And Serena says the show has been a way to get to know the city, and she really appreciates how much just that we care about Chicago. But here's something else that Serena said that I think is really important. Serena said, "I've honestly wanted to become a member for a while, but I'm currently finishing up my graduate studies, so money has been a bit tight. But with recent events as they have been across the city, I decided that this is $10 a month that I am more than willing to spend to support important programming, as well as get more plugged into this like-minded community. The free tote was definitely a plus, and if I'm being totally honest with myself, was probably the last little nudge I needed to make the commitment." Serena, wow, that is so meaningful. That is so, I'm so grateful for that, because I completely understand. This city is expensive. This world is expensive. It's an expensive place we live in.
We do not treat the money you give us as like a throwaway. It's like, come on, it's just $10. Give it to. No, we know that every dollar counts.
Absolutely. And I think, what I'm so appreciative of is, right, we wouldn't ask for these memberships if we didn't need them. These memberships really do sustain this work that we do. Keep the podcast coming out every day. Keep the newsletter coming out every day. Sponsorships are great. We have them, but longtime listeners will tell you there are some weeks where you feel like you're hearing a bunch of ads, and there are some weeks where it feels like you're not hearing that many ads. That $10 a month is $10 we can count on every single month. And if we get enough of you, right, we can count on that every single month to keep sustaining this work. And so, Serena, I am so grateful that you chose to give that $10 a month to us, and that, you think this programming is worth supporting. I think it's worth supporting. And that's why I've been asking you to go to membership.citycast.fm, become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. And again, you have just 48 hours left. I mean, depending on when you're listening to this, maybe even less time.
Exactly. Maybe it's already gone.
You're right. Who knows? To get that Neighbors Make Chicago tote that Serena was talking about, that gave her the little nudge she needed. So maybe it'll be yours too. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm.
Again, thank you so much, Serena, for joining the neighborhood and for writing such a thoughtful comment for us. So, well, let's get back into the matchups. It feels like these next two rounds are a lot more about Chicago's built environment, like the way the city is set up itself. And so this first one is multi-way intersections versus Lake Michigan currents. Now, again, these are two things that get very real very quickly. But let's start off with sort of the multi-street intersections.
Yeah, if there are multiple places in Chicago that go by the name Six Corners. If you have one of these in your neighborhood, that's what we're talking about, right? Those intersections that are like 5, 6 streets that are all in a place.
Cermak, Pulaski, Ogden, Armitage, Ashland, Elston, 79th, Stony Island, South Chicago, Diversey, Damon, Clybourne.
Yeah, Milwaukee. Did you already say Milwaukee, Damon?
Damon North. Yeah, we keep going.
And whether you're a pedestrian or you're driving or you're on a bike, navigating these intersections is always a little bit terrifying. It always gets my heart pumping. And so that's why we included it on this list. I think the Lake Michigan currents, it's funny because I made several water-based suggestions when we were coming up with this list because I think water can be very terrifying. I just think there's a lot going on down there and we don't know what's going on down there. You know what I mean? And the Lake Michigan currents are no joke, right? Like they are way more powerful than people give them credit for. I mean, we did an episode, I've mentioned this twice now, but we did an episode earlier this year that was about shipwrecks in Lake Michigan. And as it turns out, there are a lot of them, which I think people just really do not appreciate the power of Lake Michigan. And I think the more you think about it, the scarier it becomes. I will say the intersections are probably the thing that is scariest to me in my day-to-day life.
You neither want to be caught up in someone else's mistake, but you're equally scared that you don't want to be the person who causes a mistake in those. I have both gotten into an accident where I was the fault of it was my fault. I drastically underestimated just how many cars were in this intersection. And I've been on the other side where I was just driving and someone on their phone ran through their red light. And so I just find myself at those intersections, also because they've been the site of tragic cycling and walking accidents.
I'm going to go with the Lake Michigan currents because I think it is more the sort of, it's that scary because it's unknown, right? It's that spooky. I think you could theoretically build a horror film that's like, there are all these myths about like sirens, dragging people down and having sailors crash the waves. Like, right. I think you could have a Lake Michigan that calls to you and calls for you to go into it. And then it drags you away. And think about like the frozen lake and like how, right. I think it could get really creepy. Even though it's not actually something I'm as worried about in my day-to-day life, even though maybe I should be. Because again, those currents are no joke.
I'm going to go intersect. So this might be the first time we need to bring in producer Michelle Navarro, who just been sitting in the wings waiting to break a tie if it came up. Michelle, we need you.
Between this is hard because I am also very scared of the unknown and the lake current. I do not go into Lake Michigan past like when the water gets to my chin. And so that is why I am going to go with Lake Michigan. Also because even though I do agree as a pedestrian, these multiple intersections scare me, it's actually interesting that Western Avenue is actually the number one kind of site for crashes and accidents. And so, which is just a dense, long street.
It's just more of it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So I could see myself being more scared crossing Western than like a intersection. Lake Michigan is very scary. And I always tell people never trust the ocean and never trust Lake Michigan either because it is just as scary.
Fair enough.
I can't push back on that. That's very good sound logic. Very sound logic. And honestly, even in my own description, clearly I'm more scared of Lake Michigan. You don't go in it, bro. You still be on the streets at least. Like you right? You could just stay in the house. But no, we got our final matchup of the first round, and that's essentially Underground Chicago, as represented by Laura Wacker, versus going under a deteriorating underpass. Simone, Laura Wacker kind of speaks for itself, right?
Yes.
Chicago was lifted up out the swamps, and so our city sits on multiple levels, especially downtown, where you can go to lower, but then, whether you get your car towed or you down on a river walk, you are on lower Chicago. But deteriorating underpasses is such a specific thing. Why is this get to the spooky, creepy, kind of scary side of things versus just bad to look at?
Low key, I think these are the 1 and 2 seed of this entire bracket, which is not how you're supposed to put brackets together, but who cares? Whatever. So many of us have had this experience walking through an underpass, whether that's an underpass under a highway or any one of those like underpasses where you're trying to get to the lake, like you're going under Lakeshore Drive from the
or like
surface
a
level.
Metro Viaduct or something like that.
And these both are like liminal spaces. Like it feels like you've exited the real world and now you're in some kind of portal to who knows where. And in that portal might be peeling lead paint that looks like it's just like crawling off, or like you might have some
rust
vines
that when mixed with the water sort of has like a rusty
and then it's like
dripping faucet.
Yes, and it's like dripping. It's awful. You might have like vines kind of crawling down that look like they're gonna take over, or just like bird poop everywhere that's dripping, and it just looks like, I do think there is something about these underpasses that are not just gross, right? That are not just broken. I do think there is a sense of, like I said, that liminal element to it, and like that the thing that's on the other side maybe isn't the thing you want. That the thing on the other side of that underpass is maybe something scarier. And you think that because of the conditions of where you're walking, right? The conditions of where you were and where you want to go are so vastly different from the conditions in this. Again, all these same things also happen with Lower Wacker and Lower Wacker in particular, I would say, which is why I think these two things are actually very, very similar.
I think I'm going to go with Lower Wacker. And I have a very realistic reason and then a very sort of fantastical element. Or reason. My first reason is just like being down there, no matter time of day, feels like you are in sort of the ninth circles of concrete hell. Like GPS doesn't work. There are like lights.
It does feel like a place out of space and time.
It's literally holding much of this city up, which brings me to my second reason why I'm so scared of it. I don't know the foundational integrity of what Chicago did to lift its city up. But some days I'm just like, what if downtown just collapsed on itself?
No, Jacoby, so long as we keep appeasing the monster at Lower Wacker, it'll be fine. Right? It'll never be a problem. It's never going to collapse.
Every time I go under and it looks so dingy and it almost feels like the city is just sitting on support beams, I'm just like,
see,
damn.
I, on the other hand, when I'm
I get a
down
little claustrophobic. Like, what if I was down here when it collapsed?
It's funny because when I am down on Lower Wacker, I am more likely to like appreciate the engineering marvel that it is. Like, I am more likely to get interested. Whereas, again, bridges are also an engineering marvel. It's wild. Like, people go to school for many, many years to learn how to make a bridge, right? Like it's a pretty big deal. But like something about the underpasses, I do not get the same curiosity or interest in how it came to be. So I'm going to go underpasses for this round. It was tough though. I think it's very, very tough.
Yeah, this is this whole second half we bringing Michelle in because I got to go with Underground Chicago. So Michelle, what's the scariest for you?
I'm going to also have to go with the deteriorating underpasses simply because I live by one that looks like the next train that goes over it. It might be the last one right here on Western and Pershing. And it looks like it's hanging by a thread. No lie.
I love that all your fears is just aligned on Western.
So we should have put Western. Yeah, we should have put Western Avenue
on Western
as one of the spookiest things in Chicago. Clearly,
Wacker. I don't know what the. I mean, maybe it's because I don't drive, and every time that I've been on Lower Wacker, it's because I had to go down there for some reason. And just take the next exit.
There is no next exit, Michelle. That's the whole point.
There's something. Just I don't know what the whole fuss is about.
That's not how Lower Wacker works.
You ain't been down there.
You just gotta go straight through. Like,
yeah, you ain't been down there enough.
Yeah, you don't know.
You sound like a non-driver. You like just turn, just drive straight till you can't go straight no more, and then you turn.
Say, like,
there's no signs, Michelle.
There is. I'm pretty sure there was. Last time I was in there.
Not useful
You're
ones.
so funny.
I don't know. I don't see what the fuss is about. If you got in, you can get out.
I respect it. All right, so we are in round 2, Congress Hotel versus Animal Attack, Lake Michigan versus underpass. We've kind of explained all of these. So let's go Congress Hotel versus Animal Attack. Simone, what's it for you?
Spookiest in Chicago, it's got to be Congress Hotel.
It's got to be Congress Hotel. And again, a lot of these stories trace back hundreds of years. There are probably plenty of Chicagoans never been, never even heard of them. But I think its capacity for horror and its ability to scare people generations after generations. And so, yeah, I think Congress Hotel clears Animal Attack. And then we got Lake Michigan versus Underpasses. And for me on this one, I'm going to go with Lake Michigan. And I know that people, I know people listening who's like, damn, y'all really bashing a thing that y'all celebrate that we all acknowledge as majestic, a fresh water source, all of those things. But I don't know. I've stood out on Lake Michigan with enough people who have never seen it in their life to see that look in their face where they go, that's not a lake, Brody. That's not a lake. That is a all swallowing, will disappear you. You go too far, you ain't coming back. The waves will pull you under.
Maybe it's because I grew up in a place where like I had to learn about tsunami warnings. Like the lake does not scare me, really. I'm still going with underpasses, but I think we're gonna have to bring Michelle in for this one.
Michelle, Lake Michigan or deteriorating underpasses? Are we going back to Western?
Like I said, underpasses are scary. They're gross, especially when it's dark. You just kind of want to run through there. Mm-hmm. But Lake Michigan is scary. And I'm someone that I get into the lake a lot during the summer. I love going to Lake Michigan. But like I said, I don't play around. I don't get in too deep where my feet don't touch the ground. I go to 31st Street Beach. Just like the water sometimes looks extra cloudy and you really can't see through it. So you're kind of like also weirded out and scared and you're like, what's in there? And on 31st Street Beach, there's like geese and I know the geese poop in there. So I'm just like, oh, and then like besides the current, Lake Michigan is also just really scary. And so I think I'm going to go with Lake Michigan.
All right. This is a wild final matchup we have here.
It really is. I didn't expect either of these to
This is
here.
not, yeah, this is not where I thought this was going to go.
These are the most scariest to me out of the whole list, actually.
We ended up creating Michelle's worst nightmare. Now, the Congress Hotel versus Lake Michigan. It is a matchup unexpected, but it is a matchup of heavyweights in terms of, again, Chicago's maybe most notable. So Simone, Congress Hotel, sort of old school, traditional Halloween spooky, or sort of Lake Michigan, the universe reminding me of how small I really am in the grand scheme of things, type scary, type spooky.
Yeah, this is tough because I'll be all the way real. I really didn't want Congress Hotel to win this bracket.
Me neither.
It just seems so obvious, and I abhor an obvious choice. And I think we've made a lot of compelling points in Lake Michigan's favor. To your point, it's that man versus nature kind of struggle that is so quintessential to our existence. And I think, and I'm like also thinking again about that horror movie concept, like, could someone make like a really good horror movie where Lake Michigan is kind of the star and is kind of the scary thing?
Imagine if all of the shipwrecks you looked out on Lake Michigan one day and every ship that has ever sank and they were all came moving back up towards
that's a great concept.
The coast.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I just keep coming back to if the concept is the spookiest thing in Chicago. Every time I drive past the Congress Plaza Hotel, I like hold my breath. You know what I mean? Like, it is just, you can't not feel it when you're there. It looks haunted. It feels haunted. Like, it just, everything about it screams spooky. And so between the two of them.
And it's got like that glow, like that like really clear red sign that kind of sticks out.
Yes.
You can see it from LSD.
It looks like it's from a comic book, like about a haunted hotel. Like, you understand what I mean? Like it's just designed that way. Yeah, I gotta go with the Congress Plaza Hotel.
I'm gonna go with Lake Michigan. I'm gonna go with Lake Michigan.
Michelle, come in.
I don't remember how many shipwrecks we talked about in that shipwreck episode. But if we combined shipwrecks and Lake Michigan, I just feel like if all the scary stories that come from the Congress Hotel.
There's a lot of them. Like, there's like a not insignificant number of them.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Also, I believe in ghosts. I agree that Congress Plaza Hotel gives this very, very off-putting vibe every time I walk by. But the truth is, like, so many people still stay there.
You say it lost its clout. It ain't no, nobody's scared of you no more.
I'm like, there's so many people that still stay there. But would I stay in the Congress Hotel? I feel like if I were to stay in the Congress Hotel, I don't think I would have a good night's sleep because I'd just be scared the whole time. Like, I really do think I would. Emmy says she saw something there the other day, and I don't know. That Congress Hotel.
Is that your final choice, the Congress Hotel?
Oh, you're making Congress Hotel your final choice.
Yeah.
Oh, did I bully you into it?
Even though I'm scared of the lake, I do get in. I get in every summer, multiple times. I love getting in the lake. I don't think I'll ever stop getting into the lake. Congress Hotel, though, I can go my whole life and I don't have to go in and get spooked out because something fell off the bedstand or something, you know?
That's a good point. All right. Well, as much as we like to paint ourselves as these unique Chicagoans who come together to give these hyper local specific takes where we're blending our different upbringings and relationship to the city, apparently, we as basic as they come, y'all, because the answer to today's question, what is the spookiest thing in Chicago, is none other than the Congress Hotel, which has been answered as one of the spookiest things in Chicago since it was opened. But hey, no CityCast Chicago list is complete without your takes, without your thoughts being involved. So please reach out to us at 773-780-0246. I need your name, your neighborhood, and actually I need a couple things from you. One, what do you think about our list? And two, what is the spookiest thing in Chicago to you? And again, if you need to, go listen to how we open this episode and remind yourself of like some of our parameters when you're making your suggestions. All right. Join me in thanking our guest today, executive producer Simone Alicea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
And technically the person who picked the winner of this list and bracket, producer Michelle Navarro.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to Lauren M., Jeannie S., Victoria S., Michael K.P., Sarah W., and Jennifer A. These are all some of our latest CityCast Chicago neighbors, people who have signed up in the last few days to support the podcast and newsletter. Remember, you only got 48 hours left to visit membership.citycast.fm to secure your Neighbors Make Chicago tote. Obviously, you can keep signing up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor for weeks and months to come, Lord willing. But if you don't do it in the next 2 days, you can't get that tote. So again, membership.citycast.fm. Now, you know we can't wrap up without some good news. Huge shout out to Open Television, Chicago's nonprofit streaming app and media incubator. Y'all, their app features over 500 titles, and they're celebrating 10 years with a brand new coffee table book and podcast series called Beyond the Screen, featuring conversations with some spectacular Chicago artists. I just want to say again, I appreciate you for listening, reading, signing up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor, sharing this with your friends and family. I will not be behind the host microphone tomorrow, but I'll be back bright and early on Monday. I'll talk to you then. Peace. If you had to get like fear factor about it, would I rather spend a night in the Congress Hotel or a night on Lower Wacker surrounded by rats? Give me the Congress Hell and
give me the bed.
Congress Hotel and the fourth floor ghost. I squabble with Shorty. I ain't stand Lower Wacker with the rat. Like what? No. Them the most desperate, most well adapted rats. So like, if we have to get situational.
What is the line from Batman? It's you merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
I was born in it. Them rats was born in it.